Victims of human rights violation in Jammeh's regime renews their call for justice. South Sudan's government probes into the country's energy sector. And more witnesses continue to testify before Gambia's Truth Commission on the alleged killing of West African migrants. While these and more coming your way on the news desk. This is Africa TV and many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante and now the news in detail. Now, the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations on Thursday held a press briefing regarding the execution of some of the West African migrants in July 2005. Speaking at the meeting, the victims urged the government of the Gambia to bring the perpetrators of their heinous crimes to justice. Amin Dao has more details of that in this report.
The Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations, established in 2017, brings together victims whose rights were violated under the 22-year rule of former President Jammeh. The organization holds a press briefing on Thursday, which was centered on the killings of over 50 West African migrants. The sole survivor of that massacre, Martin Carey, says the TRRC is expected to present perpetrators before a competent court.
So now, through Jammeh to Justice campaign, we have been have access to present our case in TRC. And I hope the time I came to Gambia, the way people have confidence in TRC, the way people believe TRC, even not in Ghana, in Gambia here, Ghana. When you ask the foreign ministers, any authorities, oh, the TRC is working. The TRC is working. So I hope the fate of the victims, the fate of future Gambia depends on the recommendation that the TRC will make. And they are not expecting any recommendation, but rather seeing perpetrators brought before courts of competence, so that justice must be served.
Kehinde Enagami, a Nigerian whose brother was part of the West African migrants murdered in the Gambia, says in order to heal the pain they experienced, there must be justice first before any reconciliation.
Yesterday here, I was in the company of Mr. Myaku and Mr. Martin. We went to see these ECOMIG officers. And something struck me. These were Ghanaians sacrificing their comfort, their safety to come to the Gambia to ensure the stability, peace of life and property, safety of life and property in the Gambia. Irrespective of the fact that their countrymen, fellow countrymen were brutally killed, that did not stop them. So what that tells me is that as Africans, we are one. What happened in the Gambia was terrible as it seems. But the truth is, for us to have healing, for us to be able to overcome this, there must be justice. There must be justice, because without justice, there won't be any reconciliation.
National Human Rights Commission's chairman, Emmanuel Diouf, says the commission will take a prominent position in the human rights violations to make sure justice is prevailed.
We are all awaiting the recommendations of the TRRC. I'm sure they're winding up soon. In June, I was told. But the National Human Rights Commission will be at the forefront to monitor the implementation of its recommendation. And I want to assure you that we will take a prominent place, a prominent position in this process to make sure that justice is done in this country. There has been victims. Gambians have been victims. We have children of victims here. We have those who are victims. We have the victims, the Ghanaians who are victims, the Nigerians, among others. And we cannot allow impunity to reign in our country.
The Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations serves as an advocacy platform and engages the government, local and international stakeholders with the aim of addressing human rights violations. The organization has registered over 1,000 victims in the country and has more than 14 vocal points across the country. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Amindao.
Victims of human rights violations under the former regime of ex-President Yahya Jammeh seeking for justice after the TRRC recommendations. Next to Tunisia, where the recent unprecedented violent protests in the country has adversely affected the country's economy, and the fiscal deficit could exceed 9% of gross domestic product. Now, the National Monetary Fund has warned the North African country to control energy subsidies, a transfer of state companies and wages, even as protesters demand jobs and economic development. Here are more details of that in this report.
Tunisia is facing a delicate balance to balance its finances amid a worsening political crisis. The North African state has run its government for years with a high fiscal deficit that rose to 11.5% of GDP in 2020. Its 2021 budget forecasts borrowing needs at $7.2 billion, including about $5 billion in foreign loans. The country's economy and finance minister has, however, assured that the state is implementing reforms to reduce the public sector wage bill that rose to 17.6% of GDP, and which is among the highest in the world.
This government is aware of the challenges that we are facing. Among the challenges is the salary mass. We are going to work on state salary mass to find solution to make it acceptable for the state budget.
The Washington-based lender has also recommended that the government push for achieving a low and stable inflation. The fund's experts urged the Central Bank of Tunisia to avoid any monetary financing of the budget deficit, allow the exchange rate to adjust to market developments, and continue to monitor the financial sector for signs of borrower distress and bad debts.
We are going to revamp the system and to try to make it more efficient and to try to really support the people of low and medium income to address the difficult situation they are facing. In the same time, we believe that with what we are living with the pandemic, and COVID has hit us badly, not only Tunisia but the world, the government is here to support as well the companies to enable us to be strong.
The fund called for a broader social dialogue in Tunisia and urged the creation of a national structure to manage ailing public enterprises. Accordingly, the social dialogue would pave the way for undertaking recommended economic and social reforms.
Without dialogue and a real roadmap, this critical situation could worsen further and affect the social and economic levels. Reforms are needed urgently, but we have not seen any serious attempts or concrete projects by successive governments. Tunisian authorities are very slow in taking decisions.
IMF officials explained that the current government needs to engage in a national dialogue with all stakeholders to make sure the Tunisian society endorses proposed reforms and thus secure their implementation. The IMF also recommends that the Tunisian authorities redouble their efforts to advance good governance and transparency, as well as in the fight against corruption. Experts assert that making progress in these areas will attract investment and support growth and job creation.
From the report that in Tunisia, we stay with, of course, with economic matters. Now, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of the Gambia on Thursday presents its quarterly review of economic and financial developments. As part of his mandate, the Central Bank Governor, Boua Saidi, gave intense review of the report and outlined policy decisions to be considered on various key economic indicators. Sona Tunkara tells us more of that in this report.
With the advent of the global pandemic, the IMF in its January 2021 World Economic Outlook estimates a global contraction for 2020 at 3.5%, 0.9% higher than projected in the previous forecast. Governor Saidi says this reflects a stronger momentum in the second half of 2020 as countries adjust to the pandemic through medical interventions and policy support measures. Focusing on price development, consumer price inflation elevated in January 2021 on accounts of increase in oil and food components.
Headline inflation rose to 7.6% in January 2021 from 5.7% in December 2020 and by 0.2 percentage points from a year ago. Food inflation increased to 9.1% in January 2021 from 8.1% in the corresponding period in 2020. The rise in food prices is explained by the increase in all subcomponents of the food basket, except for a few.
Concerns over the hike in price of commodities, mainly food, is associated with the increase in taxation. Governor Sedi says tax increment does not affect the pricing system.
Government increased taxes, and that's why prices have gone up. This is not accurate. Price increase, the tax increase has nothing to do with the increase in prices. And in the Gambia, the major commodities which cause the increase in prices, for instance, rice, is zero tax. So it's not because of the tax increase that is resulting to the increase in price. A part of the increase in commodity prices, like I said, is structural. And that is being addressed by the government in trying to improve the efficiency of the port.
Part of the committee's observation on key economic indicators reveals a projected recovery for this year, despite the devastating impact of COVID.
The central bank's composite index of economic activity, which is a high-frequency measure of the level of activity in the economy, shows that economic activity contracted in 2020 and is expected to recover in 2021. Furthermore, the slowdown in economic activity resulted in a significant decline in private sector credit. However, fiscal and monetary policy interventions to the pandemic have mitigated the impact of the crisis on the economy.
The governor highlights 9 key economic indicators. Among them are global economic outlook, banking sector developments, domestic debt development, monetary and price developments. The report indicates that appropriate policy decisions are taken to maintain the policy rate, the required reserve, and the interest rates on the standing deposit facility at 10, 13, and 2.5% respectively. For iAfrican News, Sohna Tunkara.
Despite the impact of the COVID-19, there is a high hope of economic recovery in the year of 2021, as highlighted by the central bank governor in that report. Now, we will now take a break and come back shortly with the remainder of the story. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
The pride we take in our brand, the work we put into constantly change the landscape and elevate real estate in the Gambia, it's compared to none. From inception, our goal was to add value to the beautiful Gambian landscape. That's why we are proud innovators of community estates. Kololi Sands is an exceptional piece of work, tailored for ultimate convenience and luxury, to bring you an element of finesse that is rare but unique in its own. This is also our pride and joy, and we welcome you to the exquisite beauty right here in Kololi and right here on the waterfront. Kololi Sands, feel the ocean breeze at your doorstep.
Welcome back. This is iAfrica TV, and once again, many thanks for joining us. And now, with 2 matters of the TRRC. Now, as the Gambia Truth Commission continues to unfold the truth Regarding the alleged massacre of the migrants in July 2005, Babukar Ba, the then deputy station officer of the Bara police station, alleged that the diary containing the information of the West African migrants was instructed by the ex-IGP Usman Sonko to be falsified. He says Usman Sonko wanted to cover up all the traces of the West African migrants. Let's have more details of that in this report by Khadija Tuseka.
Appearing before the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission, Babukar Ba was the station officer of Bara at the time the West African migrants were apprehended at Bara. He testifies on the missing diary from Bara police station. Ba tells the Truth Commission that the then IGP Sonko instructed him to falsify records in the police diary, so there will be no trace of the West African migrants.
Give it to me. Murutikam diary. Said to me, go and change this diary. What you have to do is transfer all the entries in this diary. To a new diary. Am I understood? I kept quiet.
Did he ask you to do anything else apart from transfer everything into the
yes.
diary?
Except our activities concern these migrants. So he said I should accept our activities concerning these migrants.
Did you understand what he was asking you to do?
Very well.
What was it he was telling you to do?
Just to cover
up what?
What happened to these migrants?
After the migrants were apprehended from the shores of Bara, they were detained at the naval headquarters. The witness says that the migrants were tortured by uniformed officers in the presence of the service chiefs.
And then
I said to Bamba, I was standing with Bamba. I said to Bamba, what did you tell these authorities? What did you tell them?
I was
what is going on? He said, I'm going to surprise that. And I'm surprised. Then suddenly, I don't know, Bombardier went to talk to someone. I don't know whether he's a military officer. And then he came back. You get up, all of you, get up. Then Tumbul Tamba appeared. The hose pipe. Two other plainclothes officers. I used to see them. I know they work with Tumbul Tamba. You are beating them, kicking. Stamping on them, slapping them. Treating them like animals.
Mr. Bah adds that he got to know about the massacre from an NIA officer, Bamba Mane, who informed him that the migrants were murdered by the military.
He said to me, did
he say who killed who?
No, he said, they have killed all these people.
Did he say who killed?
I said, no, that. He said, the soldiers.
Gambia's former Interior Minister Usman Sonko has been imprisoned in Switzerland for more than 2 years. A number of witnesses before the Truth Commission have implicated him in a number of crimes. Among them is torture, murder, sex slavery, and the massacre of the West African migrants. Reporting for African News, I am Khadija Tuseka.
Babu Karba, one of the witnesses who testified before the Truth Commission on the alleged killings of the West African migrants back in 2005 here in the Gambia, finally to South Sudan. Now South Sudanese government has launched an audit into the petroleum sector to enable effective transparency in the country's energy industry. The company is expected to carry out audit on financial transactions and technology use for a period of 8 years from 2011 to 2019. Private sector companies that are engaged in the oil and gas business will also be inclusive in the audit exercise. Let's have more details of that in this report.
South Sudan's government says the company will carry out audits on financial transactions and technology used in the oil fields. South Sudan's Oil and Gas Commission says the audit will cover an 8-year period from 2011 to 2019. South Sudan's government says the audit will also examine how effective the private sector has been in the oil and gas industry. The audit is the first of its kind in South Sudan. South Sudan's Petroleum Commission says the independent audit will help expose several hidden issues in the oil sector, including details of sales, exports, and diseases potentially caused by the oil pollution. The government says the auditing team will also be seeking information from Sudan.
We are going to have another meeting in Khartoum so that we continue to bring the gaps that are there so that we secure the flow of oil in a very environmental manner and in a very economic manner.
The United Nations Security Council last month appointed 5 experts to get financial information from oil companies operating in South Sudan. The law in South Sudan provides for quarterly and yearly financial reports from the Petroleum Ministry as well as oil companies, but no information has been availed to the public on oil revenues and expenditures since the country gained independence in 2011.
And that report there from South Sudan finally brings this news desk edition to an end. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, you can visit on our website, onafrica.tv. There will be more news at 17:30 GMT, that's 5:30 local time, when Sana Tunkra will be here for the World Today News Bulletin. But for now, many thanks for the privilege of your company. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and bye-bye.
Star GSM felay promotion bana fina molye minul be mararing tanko bundala Gambia banko kanjang minubuko polisul am